that was a good trick. And then I was like, but what's the next card? And he goes, whatever, 3 of clubs. And then we start going through the whole deck.
No.
And we had shuffled the cards into the exact same order the whole way.
Have you ever had a moment in your life where you felt like the universe just kicked you square in the junk? Well, from my experience, these low moments can set us up for some amazing things if we have the right mindset and the right attitude to find the lesson, to look inside ourselves and try to become a better version of ourselves. My name's Nathaniel Burke, and I'm the host of the show Kicked in the Junk. I hope you enjoy.
Right on, brother.
All right, Ryan, well, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks, man.
I've seen a few of your shows, and they are just mind-boggling and so much fun, and some of the greatest, probably, yeah, really, we never think. So I meditate every day, and one of the moments that always reoccurs to me, I'm going off on a tangent already, is one thing I do is with that meditation is one of the greatest moments or some of the best moments of my life. And funny enough, you're in that because of our wedding.
Dude, thank you.
And because of just the joy and the magic it brought to everything. So definitely a big fan of what you're doing.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, it's super great. So maybe you want to just introduce yourself to everybody else. I mean, I know you do magic.
Yeah.
But maybe just how long you've been doing it and what you're doing now, and then we'll dive into some of this.
Yeah, so I'm kind of getting away from the idea of like being a magician.
Okay.
Just because it has connotations to people of like, pulling rabbits
at hats. Yes.
You know what I mean, right? So I've been calling myself more like a mentalist and an illusionist. And it's funny when you say illusionist too, like illusionist actually has the technical meaning of like cutting people in half, making cars appear.
Yes.
Like David Copperfield, he's an illusionist to the truest form of the word. Okay. But when I call myself an illusionist, I feel like it's like you can be a close-up illusionist. And what I'm doing right now is I feel like they're not quite magic tricks, they are illusions. Mm-hmm. So I call myself an illusionist, and I do a parlor show at Crown and Thieves Winery. There's about 66 people that go there. Yep. We've done 55 shows now, and yeah, it's awesome. It's super cool. I
love that.
Little speakeasy in the basement of this castle called Crown and Thieves in Kelowna, West Kelowna. Yeah. And yeah, it's awesome. And then I perform corporate events kind of all across Canada. Yep. I went full-time in 2021, and awesome. I was going to go full-time 2020, but there was some kind of bug going around or something. So
it's annoying.
So but yeah, I've been doing it now for probably close to 15 years. I got my first trick when I was like 20.
Okay.
That was like a real trick. I learned a few like small ones when I was a kid, and I'll talk about that a bit later on. But I only really got into it at around 20 years old. Like I dived in head first, and then I've been doing shows since I was probably 21, and I'm 33 now. So
wow, that's amazing, and it's interesting because I think when I first first saw you, it was an event with a real attorney brought you in. It was amazing. I think that must have been 2018. The beginning, and now to see you doing it full time, to me, I think that's just it's the best because you're just living. You get to do it every day. You get to live your passion. You're not. For so many reasons, but really it's like you're just living out your passion. You're living it for you, and more importantly for other people. And you can do that now what you love full time.
100%.
And that is so cool.
Thanks, man.
And I just absolutely love it. But I will say this, with any of these journeys I'm finding, it's not all rainbows and butterflies.
No.
It's not this journey of like, I got it, and I'm there, and now I'm marching all the way to the top, and it's just no problem. Yeah. There's pitfalls, there's issues.
For sure.
And things come up, and challenges, and that, to be honest, is what makes the story great sometimes. So what are some of the things, maybe along this journey, that you've had that have been really challenging, that have been kicked in the junk moments?
Yeah. Well, before I get into that, I just want to say quick, right before, as I was coming over here, right before I left, I was checking out your Instagram, and I saw a couple of things on gratitude and how practicing gratitude can increase your immune system and some really cool stuff like that, right? And that's one thing every single day my mom has told me is just have gratitude. She's said that to me my whole life.
Really?
And I think overall, more than anything, I'm just like super grateful to be able to do what I do, because I know not a lot of people get to pursue their full-time passion and make that their life and everything, and turning adults into kids, doing magic tricks for people, traveling the world, doing shows and this show that I've built and everything. It's truly like I just feel very grateful. I don't know what I did to deserve a 5-leaf clover, but I would have been happy with 3, in the words of Luke Combs. But, I feel super grateful for it. And, a lot of people have supported me throughout my whole life to be able to make it to this point. So that's the main, wonderful. The main thing is like, I'm just super grateful for all of this.
That's awesome. And you know what? I love what your mom did that, because not many people do that. Not a lot of the times, and all parents are guilty of it to some degree. And, because I have kids, my hope is always that my problems that I have and my issues I don't pour onto them.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
If I struggle with, self-love, I hope I don't pour that onto them. And this is also why I do my work and all that kind of stuff. But it's just amazing that your mom, through all that was a big thing. And really what I've seen is it can change lives.
For sure.
Like, and I know it sounds like cheesy, but really, like, it's a perspective shift. And a good example I've given is like, it doesn't mean everything's going away that's wrong.
Yeah.
It just means you're constantly looking for the good things. And when they come, you're able to see them and act upon them.
100%.
So
100%. Yeah.
That's
definitely.
so cool. So, and so there's no surprise really then to me that why you've been able to do this, or why you're pursuing this and it's growing.
Yeah. Well,
right?
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
It's definitely, and like you said, it's not all, rainbows and butterflies. There's definitely some hard times with it, but
totally.
But I feel like the good far, far outweighs the bad in this profession, because, you're making people happy.
Yeah.
The worst thing that can go wrong is, something that screws up in my show, or a trick that doesn't work or something. And at that point, you got to be a performer and just, hey, it's live magic,
Yeah.
It doesn't always work, or find out a way out to get out of it. But yeah, it's like, that's sometimes the worst thing that can happen. But, I will say there have been definitely like a few pitfalls. Mm-hmm. Since you said that, I've been trying to think of a few, because there's definitely a few moments that stand out. But I'd say that probably one of the bigger ones was Canada's Got Talent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't want to get sued, but at this point I don't even care. They brought me on the show, and I was told that I had to do a certain trick.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I'm a mentalist, so I do like mind reading, and I do the strongest possible magic that I possibly can.
Yes,
that's
of course.
My goal with it, right? And
that's anybody. To be honest, at any skill, I feel like there's a limitation.
Yeah.
I got you.
And so I had sent in probably 10 different clips to them of what I wanted to perform on the show. And one of them was an illusion with a piece of rope, where I cut the rope in half, put it back together, and
I've seen that, and it's amazing.
It's a cool trick.
It is. It's not a trick. It's magic. No, it's actually like crazy. That's one of my favorite ones.
Really,
yeah.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear you say that. But I don't know. In my head, I almost saw it as more of like a kid's trick. I didn't think it was good enough for the show.
Okay.
To be on a national platform.
Sure.
And I kind of told them that, and they were like, "No, we want you to do this. It really showcases your personality, and this is, nobody else is doing anything like this. So this is what you should do." And so I did, and I didn't get buzzed out. I had the crowd laughing and rolling, and they were loving it.
Yeah.
And I did the whole illusion, and everything worked out. It was cool. But then afterwards, the judges, I didn't get buzzed out, but all 4 of them said no.
Oh.
And so for Canada's Got Talent, I flew to Niagara Falls. I flew at the time, my friend John Bing and my parents out to Canada's Got Talent. I paid for the plane tickets, the hotels. Yeah. I was just like, I just want you guys there to come and support me. Like,
that's awesome.
I really thought, like, this is
it.
my moment. This is the time that I'm going to get.
This is the Eminem song.
100%. Yep. Totally.
Yeah.
And so, I did the trick, and all 4 judges say no. And I'm like,
wow.
Just absolutely heartbroken, but I wasn't giving up. And I was like, guys, I didn't want to do this trick. Like, funny. It was really funny. They didn't actually end up airing my segment.
Oh.
Thank God. Because I wouldn't have wanted them to. But they, one of the judges was like, we loved your personality. You were fun. That was a good time. But that trick wasn't good enough for Canada's Got Talent. And I was like, I know. And he's like, why'd you do that one? And I was like, because your producers told me to. And they were like, cut. And so, but right before that, I was like, I have another trick in my pocket. It's the trick that I wanted to perform. Like, please give me a second chance. I'll base my whole audition on this one card trick. Please just let me perform something that I wanted to perform for you.
Yes.
And they said no second chances. No, you're not allowed to. And I was like, okay.
Oh.
So I freaked out, of course, once I got
Yeah.
back to my room and everything, and it was a rough. I don't think I had slept for like 36 hours at that point.
Oh.
I drove from Niagara Falls back to Toronto to the airport at like 12 in the morning. Got there at 2:30. Couldn't sleep. Got back on the plane. Just went back. Just like absolutely crushed. It was just
This is 2019.
heartbreaking. No, this was 2022.
2022. Okay.
It was pretty recent.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
and like I said, I knew what I had in the tank. I knew
Yeah.
like what I could have performed for them, and they said I couldn't do what I wanted to do, and so
Which is crazy.
It broke my heart for sure,
Yeah.
because I've seen other people get second chances on that show, and and then the next guy that came out, he did his thing, and it didn't work, and the judge who told me you're not allowed to perform a second trick said to this guy, let's push him through to the next round. He's been through this hard time. He was in a car crash before he got here.
Yeah.
Let's give him a second chance. And I was like, oh, but you just told me the opposite. So it just didn't feel like fair.
Totally. Yep.
But, it is what it is. And so anyways, I ended up getting back to Kelowna. And again, I was crushed, man. I'd spent all this money on flights and hotels and, to do the whole thing. And like I said, I thought it was going to be
that's a winner.
moment. I thought it was going to be it. And it wasn't. And so that was probably that was one of my lowest points in the last little while, because I really did base everything on it. I was like, this is it.
Yeah.
But what picked me back up was I ended up going to a magic convention called Pacific Coast Association of Magicians. It's one of the largest conventions of magicians that happen in Canada.
Yeah.
I went to that 2 weeks after the audition. Mm-hmm. And I got there, and I had signed up for a couple of the competitions that they hold for the PCAM, and I ended up entering into the mentalism category and into the stage magic category, and 3 guys were there that I had been looking up to for like literally the last 15 years.
Well, see, they don't know, but they're your mentors.
100%. Yeah.
Wow.
A guy named Sean Farquhar and one of my all-time favorite magicians, Eric Leclerc.
Okay.
Eric did a series on YouTube called 365, and he did a different magic trick every day for a full year. It was incredible. Sometimes he did multiple in a day, and he's just like always been one of my. He's so like entertaining and funny when he performs that it was just like he's just always been like one of my favorite guys. So he's in the audience. And a few of my other like colleagues, friends, and other magicians that I've performed and worked with in the past, and guys that I've heard of, they're all in the audience for these competitions.
Right.
I entered into the stage magic category and into the mind reading mentalism category. Mm-hmm. And if you want to talk about what mentalism is after too, we can do that. But but yeah, I entered into those 2 categories, and you're only allowed to enter for a max of 2. Yep. And we did our thing, and then the next day we come back, and they were doing all the announcement for the winners. Yeah. And I won 2 gold medals.
Against your mentors.
Not against them. They were in the audience.
Oh, in the audience.
They were watching, but they watched me achieve 2 gold medals. So to have my mentors in the audience, and all my friends and everything all there, witnessing me.
That's almost better.
Yeah, and
in a different way.
I was just like, I don't need Canada's Got Talent. Like, yeah, I'm good. And to win these 2 medals was just it was a really cool moment of just like, sweet. This is I don't need a reality TV show to make me famous or happy even. Like winning these medals in front of my heroes
and your what the word I'm looking for, but your peers.
Yeah, for sure.
In front of your peers, like it doesn't get much better than that. Yeah, that's really cool.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it'd be like to compare, because it's hard to compare when you're a magician, because nobody knows who I'm talking about when I say those names.
No.
If someone was in a guitar competition and Stevie Ray Vaughan and B.B. King were in the audience watching them win. Yeah, it was a big moment. And
totally.
So, it meant a lot to me, and
that's very cool. So what were? Because I was anytime I hear these stories, I was like, pretend I'm you. I put myself in there. I'm like, man, I would be crushed. I'd be freaking out in the hotel room. Yeah. I would have just been like livid. What did you find to help keep you grounded during that moment? And then what was the lesson?
I was not grounded in that moment.
Okay, well, obviously not. I shouldn't say that.
Moment.
When you came out of because the rage and the anger and all those emotions pass. Yeah. But what was something that helped you like move away from that? once that wave hits? Because it would hit everybody.
Yeah, it was this PCAM convention for sure was one of the things that really helped bring me out of it, because like I was just like in a state of depression basically at that point, thinking they were going to air my footage and the whole country was going to see me.
Yeah,
and and I thought, I was scared they were going to edit it so that I was getting boos and that it wasn't the reaction that because they can do whatever they want with the footage.
That's right.
Right. So like I was just like terrified that they were going to make me look really bad. And I spoke to someone after I got off the audition, and I was like, please don't air this. You know, like there's other people out there who are on this show that are doing karaoke and dancing and stuff like that. That's not even close to their full-time job. This is my career. If you air this, it's going to hurt my career, my job, my this is what I do for a living. Yeah. Like, please don't put this on the air.
Of course. And like you said, they can change it and make it what they want.
Exactly. So
which is,
that's scary.
That's a lot of faith and trust.
When you sign up for this competition. So, it was scary. But yeah, coming back out of it, like helping myself get grounded, there was a lot of the convention helped a ton. Being around all my friends. I wasn't even going to go. I was on the edge of going, and then last minute I signed up and I drove to, I think it was in Mission, BC, something like that. And we had this convention, and like the whole convention, I met one of my best friends in magic that we connected. I'd never met him before. His name is Tetro. He's out of LA. Okay. And he's like my best friend in magic right now. And cool. He's a great guy, and meeting him, connecting with him, and then, doing magic for all these other people and seeing all these people so involved with magic, even though they weren't doing it full time. A lot of them are hobbyists. Yeah. A lot of them are a bit older, and they just have a true passion for magic. Yeah. And they're just out there, just doing their thing, and they're all spending the same money to go to the convention on hotel rooms and being a part of this, and it just really inspired me that to see all these other people in magic, even if they weren't doing it full time, that they just love this art form so much that they were all just willing to come out for that weekend and be a part of it. For sure. Totally. Yeah, definitely. So I think that was definitely a big part of what like brought me back out of it. And I'm really lucky. Both of my parents are like the most supportive people in the world, and they really helped talk me through everything. And I do meditate as well and everything, and I tried to ground myself, but there was a lot of rage, a lot of anger, a lot of just like feeling like I missed something. You know? Like I didn't leave it all on the table, or like there was something that I could have done differently. And yeah. Because it's one thing to, sorry not to interrupt, but it's one thing to put your best effort and all on the table, and you get shut down. You're like, well, at least you put your best effort in this. But it's like, oh, you're not good enough. You're like, I just gave you a Costco sample, and you guys are saying my recipe's not good. It's like, you didn't even, like, it's not even done. Yeah. I had this crazy trick in my pocket where I had the names of all 4 judges on 4 cards, and I was going to get them to like name a random card, and each card they named was going to be face up in my. I had this crazy, really good magical routine. Set out for them, and like I said, I'm a mentalist, and they wanted me to do basically, in my mind, a kid's trick with a piece of rope. Yeah. And I was like, this is not good enough for the show, and the guys who were bringing me on the show were like, no, it is good enough, you're going to be great. And I was just like, I don't think so. Yeah. I talked to other magicians, and they were like, hey, it's a slick trick, like, you do it well, let's see what happens, and if that's what they want you to do, that's what you got to do. So
that's crazy. But you know what I find interesting, all that, and you said it before we actually dove into this question, was you always practice gratitude. Yeah. And I can see it very clearly on how this benefited you now, specifically in that moment. Yeah. Because you had enough, your brain was trained enough since you were a kid to look for the positive side, to look for the opportunities, to look, because that's what happens when you practice gratitude, is you just see things in a better light. Yeah. Right? Always. And so even at that low moment, your subconscious had enough awareness, conscious or subconscious, whichever one it was, had enough awareness to tell you to register and sign up for that event. Yeah. Which is interesting. So if you didn't, like, I wonder, like, I truly wonder if you didn't have that practice already, would you have signed up for that?
Yeah, I'd probably not. Yeah.
Probably not. Yeah. And so it's funny, that little habit that became this amazing moment in your life, which is so fascinating to see, and how it kind of, just revitalized. It sounds like your love for magic and your passion for it, because again, you're around all these other people that were just so into it, which is so fascinating. Definitely. So I absolutely think that's awesome. and I'm glad you did go to that, because that's a huge. And did you not go the next year? Is that right?
I went in 2017.
Okay,
and
sorry.
that was my second time at the convention. Competed that time too, and I went into the close-up and mentalism categories.
Right.
And that one was, I mean, I'm just bragging at this point, but that one was also amazing. I got 2 gold medals for that one, and then I got the People's Choice Award, where all the gold medal acts competed against each other, and then the audience chooses who their favorite is.
Very cool.
And like being the first time at a convention competing like that to win 3 awards, I was just like, I'm just some kid from Jasper, like what? But they liked my act, and for the close-up, I actually invented my own trick for it and performed that.
Very cool.
And it was cool. And it like having a competition like that, it makes you, you get points for originality, for your dress, for the mystery of the trick, for your execution, all that kind of stuff. And so I just went literally by the criteria, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. I'm going to dress this way. And then it forced me to create my own illusion for that trick, for that act. And it was really cool. It was a great trick, and I had a little bonus of something by chance kind of happening, but it worked out really well. Mm-hmm. So basically, the trick that I invented was I got someone in the audience to grab their deck of cards. I had my deck of cards. We both shuffled the cards. And then I said, wouldn't it be crazy if the 2 top cards were the same? Mine's the 2 of diamonds. What's the top card of yours? And his was the 2 of diamonds. And everyone was like, that was a good trick. And then I was like, but what's the next card? And he goes, whatever, 3 of clubs. And then we start going through the whole deck.
No.
And we had shuffled the cards into the exact same order the whole way through.
Oh, I can't even. That's crazy, because like, because 1, that's insane.
Yeah.
And 2, just to witness that, like I can imagine being there right now and how that would have just like shook the crowd.
Yeah, it was very cool.
Very cool.
But the coolest part of it was, and if anyone from PCAM is listening to this, they're gonna hate me. But I called up a guy, and I didn't know this when I called him up, but when you sign up for the convention, you can buy playing cards, just 1, to be entered into a draw later on. Mm-hmm. And you put those cards into your little convention name tag thing. Yeah. And as we're doing the trick, he flipped his name tag around, and I saw the card. And at the very end of the trick, we spread out a bunch of cards on the table face down, and I said, we've shuffled these cards into the same order, but let's see if we can do just like a totally weird thing. I'm going to take 1 card out from my deck, you take 1 card out from yours, and let's see if they match. And they did, and it was the 10 of clubs. Mm-hmm. We both flipped over the 10 of clubs, and I go, do you know why we picked that card? And everyone was like, no. And I was like, because of your convention name tag. And he turns it around, and he had bought the 10 of clubs. So it was just like this extra little cherry on top that was just like, what the, it was really cool.
That's amazing. Yeah. And you know what, that's the beauty of it, really, is like you said, you get to turn adults into kids.
Yeah.
And you really, it's like anything, if you're embracing it, like you're in the moment.
Yeah.
Not just you, but like the crowd. It's like, oh my God, what's next? You're so involved in it, and it's so good. And really, it's so missing in our society. We're so some people get so disconnected with phones and just being so separate, but having that, just being present is just such an amazing thing. And
it forces you to be present.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, which is, and then you make this amazing memory.
Thanks,
so,
man, yeah.
What a great thing. I want to kind of slide into, I have so many questions.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll I want to slide into mentalism a little bit, and just like what your definition of it is. And then I want to just do maybe a rundown of like what your practice is like. And what I mean by that is like anybody else, oh, you just learned a trick, but it's like in my head, I'm watching you do these things. I've watched so many of them, and every time I'm like, this is the best. But then after, me and Emily are going like, I don't care how it's done. I know though that no matter how it's done, it takes a massive amount of effort and a massive amount of concentration and practice.
Right.
So I want to dive down that next. But first, mentalism, maybe tell me a little bit about your version of it, and yeah, just why you want to do it.
Sure. Yeah. So I think there's a couple of reasons. So mentalism in 2 words is mind magic. It's magic of the mind, right? It's like getting someone to think of something and being able to discern what they're thinking of without them ever speaking it out loud. You know? Making predictions of things that'll happen. I call it real-time mind reading. Because it's like it's happening in the moment, and I don't ever plan things with people ahead of my show. You know,
Right.
I don't get there's I don't know of anyone today, but I know in the past, especially years ago, there would be true heavy mentalists that would go into the crowd and say, "Hey, when I ask you to think of something, think of a triangle."
Oh.
You know, and they would like stooge people in their audience, and they would
Yes,
have
they'd
a
have
plan
plans.
right.
Yes, yeah.
I don't think many people do that anymore, but I just vowed to myself when I started this that every single person in my audience was going to be as fooled as everybody else.
Yeah.
No one's going to walk away from that going, "Oh, well, he told me to think of that."
Yeah.
You know, like I want everyone in my audience to be just as fooled as the next person. So
Yeah.
mentalism in its rawest form is magic of the mind. It encapsulates a lot of different things, and to me it's more powerful than or it can be more powerful than magic. I still absolutely love magic,
Right.
and I still perform a lot of magic, but there's a different reaction when you say, "Is this your card?" versus "Is your great aunt's name Claire?" And it's just like, "Wow, how did you know that?" You know, it's like a much more visceral, personal. It connects with people, and that's why I do it, is to connect with people.
Okay.
My whole show is well, I could spend hours talking about this, but the subtext to my show is connection. When I do my actual stage show,
I love that.
My whole idea behind every trick that I do is to somehow connect to someone in the audience, and create that connection. And people who have seen my show will know that there's a moment of connection that is sort of the pinnacle of it, where something, I can't give it away, but there's a moment of connection that happens.
I've seen you do it a few times, and it's like every time you did it at our wedding with Emily, and I was like, how did you do that? Like, what are the odds of that? And you know, I've seen a few different times you've done that, and you're right. It's like it's personal.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. It's like, I always think of it as like, you can try to work your way through a trick from a bystander, go, "Oh, this, and this. And if anybody's watching, or anybody watching, you can't with yours. Because there's just levels. There's just so many levels that it just keeps getting better. So I'm like, all right, I give up. Like, it's not happening.
Yeah.
But when it's that side, you're right. It's so personal. It kind of hits you deep, and you're like, wow, like you pulled that thought out of my brain almost, or something happened there that's different.
Yeah.
It's totally different and unexplainable.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
And that's it.
Because it's normally things that like don't make any sense at all.
Yeah, and that's why I got into it too. Was like, there was a guy that showed me a card trick, and I'd seen card tricks before, but it was all counting and math, and you know, just like kind of crappy card tricks. And then one day, this guy, my best friend who lives in the Okanagan now too, Wyatt, he showed me a trick that just went way beyond what I thought was even possible, and I was just like, how did you do that? Like, it was mind blowing.
Yeah.
And then from that point on, I was like, yeah, I want to be a magician. Like,
Very cool.
This is what I want to do.
Very cool.
And then just with mentalism too, like, so for me at this point, the method to a trick is probably the least, the thing that I'm worried about the least.
Right.
How the trick is accomplished, or what the secret is. Like, I don't really care anymore. For me, it's about stagecraft. It's about like creating suspense in the audience, creating a moment of like, you know, and
that's exactly the sound. Yeah, everybody gasps.
Yeah, you can learn a trick, you can perform a magic trick,
totally.
But to create the ability to have the ability to make the audience just like literally grab onto their seats or run into the room screaming, like, that's a whole different ball game. And I feel like that's what differentiates magicians from people who know a few card tricks.
Yes.
It's like a magician will actually put the time and work into like scripting, stagecraft, triple trilogy format, how you make a show, you know, laugh moments, dead time. Like, there's so much that has to do with like the art of performing on a stage. You know, comedic timing is really important too.
Yep.
You know, there's so many things that go into creating a show that, you know, the magic is like, I know how to do the magic, I'm good on that, but it's the rest of it that's like important for me. Musical cues, you know, like little like things that sometimes maybe the audience doesn't ever even think about, but you feel it.
Totally. You know, now that you say that, it reminds me of because you're throwing these phrases out there. I'm like, I kind of half understanding them. Like,
Yeah.
It really, when you say you're putting on a show,
Yeah.
it truly is.
I want people to feel like they're in Vegas.
Yeah, and I think of like, okay, well, what, after mentioning all those things, it almost sounds like a movie, being like, there's so many components.
100%.
And these little things don't matter that you're like, oh, what do you mean it doesn't matter? But like, it matters. I give the example because when you said music, I was like, right, it reminded me of, it's like, have you ever watched a scary movie without music?
Yeah.
They're terrible.
There's
it's just like whatever happens, and then they talk, and you're like, this isn't a thing. But as soon as you add music, it adds suspense, it's drama, it adds all these things.
Absolutely.
And you feel it, and it makes it enjoyable.
For sure.
Right?
Definitely.
So it's definitely a lot of layers.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's an interesting point that you bring up too, because like a lot of times when magicians say, "Oh, I'm an entertainer," what they mean is I'm funny. I try to be funny on stage.
Sure.
Which is totally acceptable. That's cool. But people pay the horror film industry makes millions of dollars per year, and they're entertainment.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just about creating humor, it's about creating suspense. It's about creating tension. It's about tension and release. There's a lecture that I'm writing right now for other magicians all about the bomb theory by Alfred Hitchcock. You ever heard that?
No.
I'll try to explain it quickly, but the idea is that, let's say you're watching a movie and there's two guys in a restaurant, and all of a sudden the restaurant explodes. Right? What's your feeling that you get from that? Surprise, maybe,
but
sure, it's just like, holy cow, a thing exploded. But if you take that exact same scene and you focus on the two guys eating lunch, and then the camera slowly pans down and you see a bomb under the table, and there's a countdown happening.
Yes.
Now every scene after you see that countdown is like,
what's next?
It's building the tension. So it's called the bomb theory, where if you can show the audience part of what is going to happen in the end, or create that suspense by showing them the bomb before it goes off, that's how you create the true suspense in a movie or a show.
Right.
So
very cool.
Finding out how to apply that to magic is interesting, and then you can have multiple things happen, like the guys get up and leave the restaurant before the bomb goes off, and then all of a sudden a nuke falls on the city. It's like you thought there was this small bomb, and then now there's a big one.
Right.
There's so many different layers to how you can achieve that script writing, cadence, timing, the way that you put your show together. I mentioned triple trilogy format. It's basically 3 groups of 3 tricks that you put into sort of like chunks in your show.
Very cool.
And they should build each time.
Yes.
So it's
that's the layers.
That's the layers.
Okay, that makes sense, because it's like, man, I tell everyone, like, he's got layers. It's just like, I always think of like Shrek and the onion thing, right?
Onions and the layers.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah,
exactly. But it's true, and really when you're doing that, I just this is your world clearly, but from the outside, it just makes it so good.
Yeah. I want people to forget that they're...
it's just good.
Thanks, man.
But truly, and if you can, and even better, it's like other people can learn from that, right?
Yeah, I'm hoping to put together a lecture for magicians, but it's not going to be as much about what the tricks are. It's going to be about why I do those certain tricks at that certain time, and why I put my show together in the way that I do, because that's what I really focus on. Like, the magic is great and it's fun and everything, but the reason that you're doing the show is more important. What's the subtext to your whole show?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Are you just getting on stage doing magic because you know magic tricks?
Right.
Or do you have a reason to be there? And so that, like I said, the connection to my initial show that I was doing at Crown and Thieves was connection. My new show has subtexts of connection, belief systems, and and it's funny because you have to film your show and then watch it and look at all of your tricks that you're putting into the show, and once you figure out what your subtext is, then it sort of defines what you're going to do in that show. Right. So yeah.
So how many hours? Because again, from anybody else, like, oh, you learn these tricks, whatever. But from the sounds, it sounds like a lot of work. Like it, to put into something like that. How many hours a day? I guess maybe let's backtrack. When you first started, how many hours a day were you doing just like dialing in,
just like
tricks.
sleight of hand,
and like all like your let's call it your skills, your rough skills.
I would say between 5 and 9 hours a day.
Oh.
Like that's all I did. And what I would do is I would watch other magicians perform, and while they were performing, I would be practicing sleight of hand. And so I just absorbed every single, like I could literally recite every line, every trick that I could do David Blaine's entire first special for you right now, word for word.
Wow.
I watched that thing so many times.
I absolutely love that you did that. And this is the purpose of this show is like, it's like, you can draw information from anybody and apply it to your own life. You just got to find out how and where it applies. So it just goes to show you to be a master at your craft. Again, that was early in your career, spending 5 to 9 hours. Think of anybody that isn't doing this. How often are they mastering their craft?
Yeah.
Do they spend 5 to 9 hours practicing and like dialing it in and getting better and learning and like you said, practicing while you're watching? There really is something to be said for that. And how long did you do that for?
Probably from, let's see, I'd say 2012 to 2016, probably like 4 years.
Right.
So like, it was basically putting myself through school. I was reading.
I was just gonna say that.
Books and watching lectures and watching other magicians perform as much as I could. And a lot of the lectures are not magicians teaching tricks; they're just talking about why they're doing their show and the way that they're doing it, and kind of the same idea that I want to put out there. But I realize not everyone's as lucky as me either. I had some circumstances that allowed me to be able to do that. I was born and raised in Jasper. I lived with my parents till I was 25.
Yeah.
And
that's commonplace now. So you
really. But I'd be in the basement, and all I would do every day was just get up and learn.
I love that, and really like I've said this to a few people, but it's like I've even had a show on it. It's like if you truly think about, and you did it clearly, like you're living proof of my theory actually is, but you did it in a major way. It was like something I do now is I learn one thing every day. That for me, it's like mindset coaching and business growth and all that. But even if you just learn one thing every day and write it down and memorize it, how much further ahead are you going to be? When you start compounding that, and you did it 5 to 9 hours a day. Yeah. So like you got to think of like how much further that catapulted you versus the guys that maybe when they're 50, 60, 70, they get okay at it. Yeah. But by then they're like, well, they may be out of it or don't care or whatever. So it's very cool to see like living proof of like that much just determination for what you want. So I got more questions on that, but why? What was your why during all this? Because that, like, I'm thinking in my head, like that's a lot. Yeah. Well, something must have been driving you deep to be like, this is it.
It's funny because I'm the definition of an atheist. Okay. Like I fully am an atheist. I love astronomy. I love science. I love all of that kind of stuff. So I have a hard time saying this, but there was never a question of why for me. It's my purpose. It was just from the get-go, I was like, I just wanted it so bad. I wanted to learn. Once I found this art of magic, I was like, those 5 to 9 hours a day, people are like, that's so much dedication and you worked so hard. And it's hard for me to like reconcile that because it was never like, oh, I guess I have to sit down with my deck of cards. You like now. Wanted it was to. Like I'd wake up and be like, let's go. It was like, I'd be very excited to what am I going to learn today? This was like and I've always craved learning and everything. But like I said, it was like, I've always just felt in my heart that it was like, I hate to say purpose, but it was just like, this is what it was beyond a want. It was like this desire that I just had to do it. I woke up and I was excited to do it every day. And it's all I wanted to do. There wasn't anything else that I wanted to do. I would take breaks just to go grab a bite to eat and then come back to what am I learning now, and
and you know what, now that you tell me this, because I'm learning a lot through like Brian Tracy, does a lot of business stuff, Tony Robbins, all this kind of stuff. And it's funny, like the stuff you're saying that you did is literally the stuff people pay them to tell them to do. Right.
Yeah.
And it's just funny because you literally just led with your purpose and led with your heart,
Yeah.
essentially, and just kind of let that, take over, essentially, which is so cool and even better. But again, like you said, it was 4 years. Like, when was the first time you started actually were able to do live shows and get paid for it?
Oh man, so it was hilarious. I started off doing like kids shows.
Yeah.
And the kids shows that I did were in Jasper. And once I started doing those, every single kid, I probably performed at every kid's birthday in Jasper at least twice. Yeah, and it was the same
population of 100, but
exactly. Yeah, it's the same group of kids every week that I'd be doing shows for, just different parents. And so that was hilarious. But I started off doing kids shows. My first actual show was for $50 for a church group that was like 20 clicks outside of Jasper.
Yeah.
And they hired me to do close-up magic, which was like walking around the room.
Yeah.
And I get to the event, and they had 60 chairs facing a microphone. And I was like, I'm not doing close-up, am I? And they were like, they wanted me to do it. And they hired me for 2 hours, so they wanted me to do a 2-hour show.
$50.
Yeah, for $50, and it was awesome. And I did. I pulled it off somehow. I always have a saying with me: is ABE, always bring everything. Just because you're gonna forget something one day, and you're gonna need it.
I love that because I think of like if you're doing like mindset coaching with somebody or like life coaching or anything where you're like, hey, I'm here to help you. If you come like half prepared. And they're, here, it's like, you're right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny, that was actually been my model this week, is like, I need to make sure I come prepared with like everything.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Just in case.
So that's so funny that you brought that up.
Mentally too, ABE, always bring everything. Just always bring everything you got, all the time.
I love that. That's super cool.
Doesn't matter if you're running on 10%. If you got an event for 500 people, 3 hours away, you got to go. You got to do it. I'll tell you the story of Prince George in a few minutes here. But yeah, that really helped me. I brought everything to that show. I did it for $50. It was a blast. But the first time I ever went out in Jasper to do magic was Halloween of 2012. Mm-hmm. I dressed up as the Mad Hatter. And I brought some decks of cards with me because I'd been learning some tricks. And then Jasper's so small that the next day I'm walking around and everyone's like, that's the magician. And I was like, I guess I'm a magician. Cool.
There's the hat. I just put it on. That's my new title.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then I was really lucky to, again, I got a lot of luck. A girl named Kat Venna and her mom, and then Stephanie Sophocleus. They were huge people in my life when I started off. Kat allowed me to do, and Sue from the Legion in Jasper, who, I love you, Sue, and Kat and Steph. But when I was in Jasper, they start with Kat. She had a place called El Mundo Loco. It was a Mexican restaurant. She allowed me to perform a show every week there. So I was doing one show a week there.
Nice.
And it was a 3-hour show.
Cool.
Hour of close-up magic, hour of stage magic, and an hour of mentalism. So it was just like...
That's a long time.
Yeah, and because Jasper's so small, I got to test out every single trick that I did because it was going to be the same crowd a lot of the times.
Right.
So I got to
proving grounds.
Proving grounds, sandbox.
Yeah. Totally. And you know what? It's funny because you've said this a few times. You're like, oh, just lucky. And it's like, the way I see it, I'm like, no. I mean, yes, you can. That's one perspective, but what is luck? It's right mindset, it's effort, and it's effort and attitude. Yeah, you had a good attitude, and you put in a shit ton of effort. So, and you're willing to put yourself out there. Yeah, that's part of the effort side. So when you're willing to do those things, did everybody say yes to you when you asked them about doing shows? No, I'd gotten some no's for sure. Totally. But Steph from Takara Lodge approached me. She has a resort of 40 cabins. She allowed me to do one show a week out there. Yeah. I was doing one show a week at the restaurant. And then there was a girl named Sue at the Legion who allowed me to do a show there as well. Yeah. And the first show that I did at the Legion was like 120 people and it sold out in like 3 days. Wow. And that was like the moment where I was like, this might work. Like I might actually be able to do this. That's a cool feeling. Yeah. I performed a few more shows in Jasper there, and then I realized Jasper was going to be too small for me to do this full time. I had approached multiple hotels and been like, I want to be considered as your corporate entertainer anytime you guys have people in. Yeah. Didn't get any calls from them. Right, yeah. I got turned down a lot there. And then I moved to the Okanagan, became a wine tour guide, started networking with people and going on wine tours and doing magic for people all day. And then I got the residency at Crown and Thieves, and then all the corporate events that came from doing all the wine tours, which was awesome, as well as just like...
I'm not going to say their name, but I know a magician who has focused most of their life on marketing, and they're amazing at it. They are one of the best. But I spoke to that person a while ago, and I said, they were like, I'm trying to get more events, and a lot of the Google ads are saying no, and it's just not quite working out. And I said, why don't you just like go to a coffee shop and just go and do some magic for somebody in a coffee shop? And he laughed at me, and he was like, are you actually telling me this is like a marketing strategy, dude? Like, I'm too busy. I'm not going to do that. Yeah. And he's right, because he has kids, and he's focusing on website design and email correspondence and responding to Google ads. There's a lot that goes on with magic in the background. But I think it's really important for magicians to go out and just do magic for everybody that you can, as much as you can. Yeah. Just go and do it. It's what, like, go back to the person who started doing this. You didn't think about website design, and
you weren't worried about making money. You just wanted to see people's faces.
Yeah, go back to that.
Yeah, you want to see them excited.
Ignite that passion again. Yeah, and then one of the last times I did that, I was in a coffee shop here in Kelowna. Okay. I walked in, and I did a card trick for this guy that was older, probably in his 90s. Yeah. And I said, I'll give you my card. And he gave me his, and it was Jim Pattison.
No way. Huh.
Canadian billionaire.
Yeah, he's the biggest guy in Western Canada. Right. He owns all the Save-On, his car dealership, like, you name it.
Right, and I've been hired for multiple Save-On events, and they want me to do an event with Jim. And like, wow. you never know who you're going to meet.
And you know what? And this is what I was talking about. It's not luck.
No.
Well, it's not, I mean, again, there's timing, but really, what did you do? You had a good attitude. You had a good effort. You put yourself out there, and you're willing to just do what you love and let people feel it and respond. For sure. And yeah, it might have went the other way, but it didn't. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And it's good. It's so good because it's encouraging for me. It's encouraging for anybody that is starting up their own thing or not sure what to do. And you're right. If it brings that much joy to someone's life or that much happiness or whatever you're doing, whatever anybody's doing, it's like there's lessons here that, like, I would say success leaves clues, right? You had you put a lot of work in what you did. You had a good attitude. There's a lot of things you did, and I mean, I think about it now. Even going around and doing stuff if you're a paid event guy and doing free stuff at the coffee shop, probably a little, might be a little humiliating. Or like this other guy, we might thought it may be a bit humiliating, but got a result, and ultimately it made them happy, and now it worked for you. So.
And what's the worst case scenario? Exactly. You go and do a card trick for somebody, and
they smile and they go, that was awesome,
and that's it. And you walk away. Like there's nothing bad that can come of it. If you ask someone to see a card trick, they might say no, and
you're still not doing magic anyway if you don't.
There's a rejection there, and you gotta be like, oh damn, that sucked. But then whatever, you go to the next person, and
somebody will.
Somebody will.
People will, because humans love that. Yeah. Humans love to be entertained. We know that. Yeah. And especially if it's fun. And it makes them wow, and they use their brain, and they get this, like, oh my god, that was, like, we love that as humans. So why not have it in real life versus waiting, watching it on a show or something? Yeah. And like I said, it took, I thought about it now too, doing the wine tour and stuff. Like, there's humility and not in like nothing wrong with doing those things, but I could see if somebody had a mindset of, let's just say they had a bit more of an ego. Well, I'm too good to do a wine tour. I'm just doing shows. But you had the flexibility and the tenacity to just be like, no, this is an opportunity. Yeah. And it clearly worked.
Yeah. I had this great teacher named Richard Dimitri back in the day. He taught a self-defense class. And one of the first things he ever taught was defense from your own self. Like, eat clean, sleep well, do good things for yourself first. You got to defend against yourself first and foremost.
I like that, yeah.
It was great, and that's when I started learning magic after I went through his course and everything.
Interesting.
Yeah, and one thing that he kind of taught me that I've always remembered, and that I kind of just assumed, like, first of all, he was all about no ego, like zero ego. Get rid of your ego. Yeah. It does nothing good. Just get rid of it as much as you can. You're not better than anybody else for any reason. Like, you're just not. Mm-hmm. And but he always told me the idea of like punching through, and I learned that when I was like a kid too in like karate. But like, if you're trying to break a board in karate, you like hit the board and it doesn't break. Yeah. Right. It's because you just tapped it. And there's a lot of people that are out there right now that are trying to be successful, and they're just tapping on that board with their finger. It's like you got to punch through it You gotta actually like that. With another like sort of term that's really similar. It's like dress for the job that you want, not the one you have. Right.
Yes.
Apply that to your whole life. Like act like, for me, it was like act like you're already a professional magician, but go out and do magic for everybody. And you know, assume that role in your own head first.
Yes.
Punch through, and you know, that's sort of like one of my big things for success was that I never thought it was going to turn out any other way. When I really started putting effort into it, I was like, no, this is happening. It's just a matter of how
and when.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It was never if.
That's so good, and that kind of, it's funny, the synchronicities, and that's what I was learning in that Brian Tracy book this morning, as he talks about when you're writing down your goals. He was saying a lot of times, and I've done this in the past, I want to do this, and this is what I want to do, and this is what I want to do. And he was saying, write it down as, I am doing this.
Yeah.
I am doing this.
Yeah.
I am. And I went, and I've always believed in goals and, you know, your reasons and like your focus, all that kind of stuff. But it was just it's just that little extra shift of like you said, it's like you're doing it now.
Yeah.
Be the professional now.
Yeah.
Right. And it's kind of funny that you said when you did first go do all those Halloween tricks for everybody, or sorry, on Halloween, did all those tricks. It's like that sounded to me, it sounded like a moment of like, right, there's the hat. Like I'm putting on the magician hat, and that's me now. Right. Sure. And just, okay, how else, and you did it without, you know, realizing that you just, okay, how else can I be this person? What does that look like? And now you're doing it on a level instead of just the you know, just trying to get out there. Now it's like, okay, I want to build a show and build the layers and have the sound and do your triple trilogy, is that what you said? Yeah.
Triple trilogy format. It's an old school way of putting a show together.
Right. And but you're growing on that. And it's so cool to see. And
thanks, man.
Yeah, and just and that, you know, and really like you said, that you have the humility and have all these things that you have a format that you've used, and it's you can put that in anywhere.
Yeah.
Whether you want to build a business, whether you want a relationship, whether you want, you know, to earn more money or be more in shape, like that's a formula for any kind of success, whether you want magic or not.
Yeah. Definitely.
Right, which is so fascinating, and just it's I love seeing that. I love kind of hearing the process. I'm like, oh right, okay, here's the steps. Yeah. So very cool. So thanks, man. You said, and I got one more question, then we'll kind of wrap up here.
Yeah,
but when you found, and you touched on it a bit earlier, your purpose. You knew that was your purpose. What helped reinforce that purpose? Did you think, or was there certain things you did? Because that's a tough one for people, and I'm learning mine. But if you're not sure, it's like if somebody wasn't sure of their purpose, what would be your suggestion?
Oof,
I know it's a tough one.
That's a good question.
It's a tough one. Yeah.
I think what it comes down to for me, it was that I stumbled upon this beautiful art called magic, and for me it was something that I just wanted to learn about so badly. It was like it took over every other avenue that I had in my life. It was just like, this is all that I want to focus on. So if you're you know, out there and you're not sure what your purpose is, you gotta start looking. You know, and like
that's a good point. Most people don't.
Yeah.
Right?
People work the 9 to 5, they go home and they crash, and then they do the same thing for 30 years, and you wake up and you're like, what? How am I wrinkly? What the hell?
Yeah.
You know. But I feel like, there was a calling for me. It was like I needed to do this, and I never thought that I was going to be a professional magician when I was learning card tricks in my parents' basement. I never thought that this was going to be the path that I was going to take. You know, I was still thinking about school up until a few years ago, going back and getting a business degree or something.
Right.
But I just, once I really like knew that I was this much in love with it, it was that I was truly in love with it. Like, you know, that's really what drove my passion, was like, I'm in love with this art form. And I love, so I play guitar, I sing, I was in my high school musical. I was, you know, I've always been like a guy that is, you know, wanting to be in front of other people.
Totally, yeah.
I was obsessed with Just for Laughs when I was a kid.
Okay.
I knew every comedian's lines front and back.
Really?
Watched the reruns a million times for sure. But I could never write jokes that well. And I knew I wasn't good enough to be a musician.
Right.
And I think I'm okay, but I didn't think I was quite good enough to really pursue music as like a career. And it's just a heavy field, man. There's a lot of really, really talented people out there.
Yep.
Then I found magic, and I was like, I could do this one-on-one. I can connect to somebody with 5 people, 10, 100, 200. I can do this for massive amounts of people if I want to. And I get to be that guy that's like getting that euphoric feeling from being on stage. Like that, a lot of people get stage fright. For me, it's the opposite. I'm like, that's what drives me.
Yeah.
So for somebody that doesn't know what their purpose is and they're trying to find it, I would say just start putting the effort into finding it. For me, like I said, those 9 hours a day, never once did it feel like work. It never felt like work. It never felt like I had to do this. It was like I wanted to do this. Every single time I wanted to do it. Right. You know, you don't put on a movie or, you know, a lecture or read a book because you have to. You do it because you want to. Ultimately, so you got to find out what you really want. And one of the best, I've been, you know, I read some of those types of books as well. I read a great one called Think Like a Monk.
Yeah, by Jay Shetty.
Jay Shetty.
Great book.
Fantastic. To find out what your values are.
Yeah.
Right? Really figure out what you actually value in terms of your day-to-day life even, right? Yeah. Another great one that I read recently was Breath.
Oh, okay.
It's a great book. Yeah, if you get a chance, check that one out. And just learning how to breathe and how important that is and how
all your emotions are connected to it.
Everything. Yeah, it's the reason we have bad teeth is because we all mouth breathe. Yeah.
Oh my God, I watched a video on it and I can't remember the guy's name, neuroscientist, can't remember his name off the top of my head, but anyway, he was talking about how like if people are mouth breathers, it changes your jaw structure.
100% it does, yeah. The first experiment that he does in the book, he plugs his nose with like cement for 2 weeks. Every doctor was like, this is a bad idea, don't do this. And his blood pressure went up, sleep apnea, snoring, like just anxiety, depression, everything just skyrocketed from mouth breathing. But the reason I bring that up is because like a lot of times people's anxiety and depression can just get in the way of their thoughts in general. Yes. So you got to find a way to get centered to just sit down and be like, okay, I'm gonna figure this out, and have that drive to actually want to change and to want to find out something. And there's Chetty mentions it in his book, Dharma. You got to find that place where you're excited and scared, and you got to walk that line.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts. Yes,
yeah,
and it's so true. I've heard Ed Milet talks about this. Is like moving through fear, like Tony Robbins talks about it as well. It's like it's that dance with fear. Yeah, where it's like you're excited, but you're also scared. Yeah, and on the other, and I thought it was such a good phrase. It's on the other side of that fear is a better version of yourself.
100%.
And so it even reminds me of like it makes me think of how many times you had to go and like, you had to put yourself out there and call these people and talk to them and put yourself out there saying, hey, I'm here to entertain you. And again, it's no small claim to say you're an illusionist or a mentalist or a magician. Like it's not because the standards now are so high, right? And there's a connotation of like, oh, we got a rabbit in a hat and, the wand and like, you know what I mean? So it's like we have this different perspective of it. Yeah. So it's not a small thing to say that, right? So yeah, to be able to take that fear head on, the excitement's there, take it head on, it made you a better person.
Thanks.
Right? Sure. And it does with anybody. If you take that stuff head on, that's something I'm learning in my journey with this, even with the podcasting and stuff, there's sometimes you're like, oh, what do people say? But it's like, no, but I know on the other side of that, there's gonna be a lot less fear and we'll be better for it. Yeah. So now my thing is like, okay, at this moment in my life, I'm afraid of it. I need to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
It means I need to do it. I mean, generally speaking, I'm afraid of heights doesn't mean I'm jumping off any height I can see, but I went ziplining this summer and like doing, dancing with it a little bit. So
yeah, 100%. Yeah, face those for sure. Yeah, don't get stuck in the comfort crisis.
Yeah.
If people are just stuck, that's a great book too. But
you were telling about it, yes.
Yeah, it's like if you're too comfortable, there's no growth. There's no growth in that. And it's so easy to just take out your phone and play the slot machines on Instagram. The slot machine of what's the next reel, what's the next thing, doom scrolling, man. It's horrific.
Mindless.
It's absolutely mindless.
I'm like a conscious adult and I can get stuck.
Yeah.
It's not hard. It takes like all of a sudden, And then you do it twice, and then all of a sudden you're there, and you're like, holy, I gotta like check myself all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't fall in that trap.
Yeah. And it's not to say that like every once in a while, okay, cool, turn your brain off. I get it. Everyone's got to do that. But don't let it like
control.
Don't let that be your default. You know,
Yes.
like you're feeling that anxiety or depression and you're, well, I'm just going to doom scroll. And you're like, no, Doug, figure out something else. Do some breathing, stretch, fucking do something that's good for you.
Yeah. And Emily always talks about this too. My wife is like, and if you're going to like curate what you're watching, curate what you're being susceptible to. Are you watching some cool magic tricks or some like fitness stuff that you're really intrigued by, or just something really funny, or is it pictures of girls or guys that you're just subconsciously and consciously lusting over, or comparing yourself to this couple's lives, or you know, oh, look at this guy in this trip, why can't I go on a trip? And like it doesn't take long until you're just comparing your life, and they say the quickest way to being poor is to comparison. It's comparison, right? Quickest way to poverty, that's it. The quickest way to poverty is comparison.
Right, of course.
So don't sit there and compare yourself with these people. If you're going to do it, make it curated, learn something, maybe have a laugh. Memes, I love memes. They're hilarious. Like, right? There's nothing wrong with that. It's good, but you know, take it and make it purposeful, and then move on with your day, right?
Set a timer or something.
Yeah,
you know?
10-minute timer or 50-minute timer. Like, you don't need it for more than that.
No. And again, it's just staying stuck in that. I think a lot of people just tend to stay stuck, and they're just, it's the fear of change, and because that's the scariest thing. But the only thing, my mom said this too, is that the only thing that we're guaranteed in life is change.
Huh.
She always told that to me.
She's a smart woman.
Yeah, smart woman.
She's a very smart woman.
Strongest woman that I've ever met too.
Really?
Yeah, for
very
sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, is there anybody else on that note? Is there anybody you'd want to thank before we wrap this up here?
Oh, well, for obviously you. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
That's
Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah. And then, of course, like to every client who's ever hired me, to any person who's ever watched my magic, you know, and I've gotten to share my passion with them. It means a lot that they come out and support. And so, you know, anyone who is watching, I perform at Crown and Thieves Winery. Do 3 or 4 shows a month there for my public shows. I have another public one coming up at Copper Brewing in March. Penticton, we got the Highway 97 Brewery happening. I'm going to be in Golden doing a show here, a public one pretty soon.
Awesome.
And just thanks to everyone who's supported me throughout the years, especially my folks.
Yeah. And it sounds like you had a very good system there, and even just a few things that you've said about your mom. If that's what you remember of your mom, that's huge. Yeah. Like that's worth more than any money. I think, in my opinion, that people could leave you, because now you're building something for you that you did. Definitely. Right? Which has got to feel a lot better than to get a hand-me-down or get a handouts or anything like that. 100%. So that's very cool. Yeah, she gave me a lot of wisdom, a lot of good little nuggets like that. She's full of them. That's awesome. And where can people find you on? We can find you on Instagram. Instagram, if you want to follow me, it's at Ryan Michael Magic. Website is RyanMichaelMagic.com. Facebook's.com/RyanMichael, I think, or Ryan Michael Magic. Check it out. Absolutely. Yeah. We'll tag some of the stuff in the show. And cool. Yeah. I mean, all the greatest people out there have 2 first names. So, I mean, you know, I mean, maybe that's what it was. It was just destiny. Yeah. And my last name is Magic, so that helps. What? I'm actually an accountant. Like, oh, it's disappointing. Awesome, man. Well, thanks for being on the show here. We hug it out. Yeah. Cheers, man. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I really appreciate you taking the time of your day. Hopefully you're learning from these episodes, as I know I am, especially with these interviews. They are so wonderful. If you want to support the podcast further, please like and share. If you haven't yet, you can go on Spotify and rate the show. That always helps. You can subscribe on YouTube. And then lastly, you can go to lifepurposely.ca, sign up for our newsletter there, where we are sending out weekly thought-provoking ideas and ways to help you live your best life and to live with more purpose, and tips and strategies that we find change our lives. So thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you on the next episode.